Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another segment of Word of the Day. My name is Caesar, and this is Inspire a Movement. Today we're continuing with the word carbohydrates, which by definition are sugar molecules. So carbohydrates are one of three macronutrients, including proteins and fats, and these are the essential nutrients that are derived from food and drink. Now, they are the body's main energy source for your body's cells, your tissues, and your organs. And it's also important to know that when you have high blood sugar, which is considered anything over 100 milligrams per deciliter, this could be actually detrimental to your body because it begins to constrict blood vessels by creating fatty deposits along blood vessels, and you can imagine how that would be bad for circulation or blood flow. When you have too low a blood sugar or glucose level, it's considered to be below 70 milligrams per deciliter. This is considered to be hypoglycemic, and that has its own issues as well. As we further dive into how the body self-corrects in terms of these levels when they're either too high or too low, we have something called our endocrine system, and we have an organ called the pancreas that, depending on whether blood sugar is too high or too low, releases a hormone into the body to try to get homeostasis or equilibrium. In the case of high blood sugar, your pancreas is going to release insulin, which you may have heard of already, in order to regulate that back down. And insulin, essentially what it does is stores that excess glucose at the cellular level, and insulin acts essentially as a key into the cells so that you could store that excess glucose there. And glucagon is used by the pancreas to bring folks that have hypoglycemia or blood sugar levels that are too low back up. So the body's always regulating this via the endocrine system, and specifically the organ called the pancreas. Now, in terms of resistance training, we talked about this previously when we talked about fats. We can touch this again now because it becomes very relevant as we talk about carbohydrates, blood glucose, and how that's stored in the body. We mentioned in a previous episode that this is stored, excess glucose is stored either in muscle tissue in the form of glycogen, in the liver, as well as fats or adipose tissue. Why is this important for anybody that's trying to be fit or just have a better, healthier lifestyle, if you will, and get rid of that midriff extra fat weight? Well, for one, we know that adipose tissue, that excess adipose tissue, has all sorts of bad conditions associated to it. When we do this resistance training, essentially what we're doing is we're damaging muscle fiber, and when you damage muscle fiber, it needs to be repaired. How does the body do that? By seeking out that stored glucose, which is now glycogen, specifically in your fatty area or your adipose tissue. And over a 3-day period, 72 hours, your body is repairing and also growing, preparing for the next time that you go and do some form of exercise, your muscle tissue. So this is why resistance training becomes so important, and how it's very much directly tied to carbohydrates, glucose, blood sugar, in this case glycogen. Now, compounded with some form of cardiovascular exercise or aerobic exercise, which now attacks the triglyceride component of the fat molecule, now you're really doubling down, because as we mentioned previously, pancreas is releasing glucagon, which essentially at night becomes very active to maintain your body's vital functions. As it's maintaining its vital functions, this glucagon is released, and you try to do some form of cardiovascular exercise in the morning, you're doubling down even further. So if you compound the cardiovascular exercise with that anaerobic exercise or resistance training, you're going to be optimally addressing any excess weight that you may have in the midriff area. Just some little tips that you can use going forward as you try to become possibly a little fitter, or maybe work in that midriff area in some ways. These are just little tips that you can account on. Carbohydrates, again, are extremely important because at a cellular level, mitochondria, which is a component or a subcellular component, uses carbohydrates in the form of pyruvate as well as fatty acids as a substrate for energy production. So this is all very integrally tied. Just some food for thought. Hopefully you find some of these thoughts and sharings interesting. Please tune in with us at www.inspire movement for anything else that you would like us to consider. We do these offerings for you from a place of love and respect. I wish you a tremendous rest of the weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Word of the Day. Bye-bye.